Hey everyone, my name is Kevin McGillivray, and I wanted to share today a few tips for your first life drawing session. A few years ago, I was totally new to going to life drawing sessions, and when I started going, I got really hooked on it. I went to as many as I could, and now I run my own group in my town. I run a life drawing group where people can come and do life drawing, and it's a lot of fun, but it can be intimidating. You know, it's a new experience for a lot of people, and so yeah, I thought I would just share a few things that I've learned from my experience in life drawing, and maybe they'll be helpful for you. And they're good tips for your first session. They're really good tips for any life drawing session that you go to. These are kind of the basics of going in and making sure that you have an enjoyable session, a fun session, and that you learn something about life drawing from it, which is really the goal, of the whole thing. So yeah, I have my iPad here with Procreate, and I thought I would just kind of do some drawing as I'm talking, and sharing some of the things that I've learned. It's not always possible to do this, but the first thing that I would recommend is to arrive early. You know, if the session says, it starts at 6 or it starts at 7 or whatever, like that's typically when the first pose starts. And so if the pose is starting at that time, you want to make sure that you have enough time to set up, get your materials ready, kind of settle into the right mindset for drawing. A lot of times, people arrive late and, schedules don't always work out. But if you can, it's a good idea to try to arrive ahead of time. And yeah, that gives you a little bit of a chance to, one, make sure your materials are ready, two, chat with some people, connect with a few people, since so much of the time we're just kind of sitting there and focused on drawing, and so it's hard to have enough time to catch up. People like to chat, and that kind of rolls into the next point, which is to make sure you set yourself up for success. Especially at our sessions, we just have kind of like tables available with chairs, but really the ideal drawing posture or painting posture is to have your drawing paper upright, vertical or nearly vertical, or maybe slanted a little bit, so that you can easily see the model and your paper at the same time, or whatever you're drawing on. Yeah, that's just something. It makes such a huge difference to be able to to have that line of sight and to be able to quickly look back and forth without having to look down at your paper. At my session, I wish that we had more kind of like easels available, and a lot of life drawing sessions do. They have kind of easels available that you can use. But if your session doesn't, ask the organizer ahead of time if you're not sure. But if you can bring your own easel or anything to kind of a drawing board, however you like to do it, but just think about how you like to draw, and if you're new to drawing, or you're new to life drawing, from a live model rather than from like a photo reference or something, take some time to try to set yourself up, so that to minimize having to look back and forth between the model and your drawing. The tip number 3. Make a plan before you go into a session. Doesn't mean you always follow the plan exactly, but just having some intention for what you hope to do or what you plan to do during the session can give you a little bit of confidence, and it's almost like a mantra, something to check in on as you're going. If you kind of get lost or overwhelmed or get a little bit tired, it's something that you can kind of recenter yourself in the middle of a session. There's often a lot to think about, a lot going on. You might a pose might be kind of like you didn't expect some wild pose. So going in with a little bit of an idea of what your personal goals are, and it's also good to have a goal that isn't just make a good drawing. We all want our drawings to look really beautiful and have a sense of excitement and beauty, but yeah, having something that is something that you're working on, something that you're learning, something that you are kind of intentionally trying to practice in the session. it can help in those moments of discouragement, especially if you're if you're new to it, and have kind of have a lot to learn and have a lot to practice, and it can get really overwhelming. So yeah, having the intention that you're there to exercise, you're there to learn, you're there to practice, and here are the specific things that you're looking to practice, and that can just be getting some reps in. If you're very, very new, and you haven't done it a lot, but at least going in with that mindset can really help help to clarify and to recenter. Tip number 4 is, if you go in with a kind of a plan for what you're learning, or maybe you're learning some stuff at home, you have a plan to practice a certain skill at the session. Talk with other artists about it while you're there. I think besides just the opportunity to practice from a live model, life drawing is one of the main opportunities to connect with other artists, and so just sharing what you're learning, and encouraging asking other people about what they're learning, is it just, those kinds of insights don't happen anywhere else unless you're actually talking to other artists about what you're doing. It creates a very kind of convivial atmosphere when people are actually discussing. And lots of people have different goals and of what they're working on, what they want to practice. And you might find something new that you hadn't even thought about before, just from hearing what somebody else is interested in. So going back to setting yourself up for success with materials and with the way that you set up your supplies, I would recommend trying a big sheet of paper. Lots of beginners, I did this as well, when I first started, either draw on small little sketchbooks, or even if they have a big sheet of paper, they draw really small. I remember when I went to my first session, the kind of facilitator was giving me some tips about drawing larger, and if you set yourself up with a upright piece of paper, you want it set up in a way that you can use your entire arm to draw, rather than kind of this little writing posture. We want to be able to draw with our entire arm. And you don't have to draw that way, but it's been a pretty tried and true tip and approach to drawing, is to use your whole arm. It gives you this huge range of expression that adds so much life to our drawings. So if you can, grab something bigger than a little 8.5 by 11 sketchbook or whatever, something at least 11 by 17, 14 by 17, or even bigger, 18 by 24, something like that, and give it a try. It's a skill to draw large, and life drawing is such a amazing opportunity to practice that skill. So going hand in hand again with your setup, your big sheet of paper, pay attention as you're going through the session, and maybe this could be your exercise for the session. Pay attention to how much time you spend looking at your drawing and looking at the model. This was one of the, my art teachers gave me this advice all the time, is you should spend more time looking at the model than at your drawing. I think when we're drawing, it's very tempting to get very kind of obsessed with what our picture looks like. Is it looking good? Does it look okay? Is that, I don't like that part, I like that part. Where the joy and the benefit of drawing from life is that we get to study life. So we want to just be looking at what we are drawing. And so that's a skill, and it's something that you can practice. That's one of the reasons why we want to have our paper right next to it, so that we can be looking at the model. We can see a little bit of our drawing in our peripheral vision, and we can quickly look back at our drawing if we need to. But one of the exercises to practice this, if you're going into a session, is to try contour drawing. And so that's where, or blind contour drawing, where you specifically don't ever look at your paper. You use your pencil, put it down on the paper, move it around to draw while only looking at the subject. In that case, maybe you do want to lower your paper down so it's harder for you to see it. But that is such a good exercise to really open your eyes, to practice your hand moving in coordination with your eyes in a way that is kind of, it takes practice to do that. So if you're kind of struggling for a first exercise for your first session, maybe try contour drawing and just awareness of how much you're looking at the model versus how much you're looking at your paper. And the last tip is to take notes on what you learned, kind of summarize what you learned after a session. Definitely take photos of your drawings. I keep an album in my photo app of all of my life drawings going back to my first session, and it's truly remarkable to kind of look back and see progress. And so having that kind of journal, just writing down a little bit about what went well, what went wrong, questions that you have, your reflection on it, that really accelerates your learning and gives you a starting point for the next session. And because it's kind of hard to remember in between exactly what we want to learn and where we left off. I think those were 7 tips. So arrive early, set up your materials for success, go in with a plan, some exercises you want to do, chat with other artists about what you're learning, try a big sheet of paper if you haven't before, look at the model more than you're drawing, and take notes on what you learned for next time. Those are 7 tips. So cool. Thanks for watching. And let me know if this was helpful down in the comments, or if you have other questions about life drawing, and see you next time.